Okay, let's get into this. I want you to picture a survivor. But I'm not talking about a person. I'm talking about a building. And not, some stone fortress or a concrete bunker.
Which you might expect, given the history of the region we're talking about.
Exactly. I'm talking about a wooden house.
Which, in the context of 20th century European history, is a very fragile thing to be.
Incredibly fragile. We are heading into the forests of Poland today, to a place called Podkowa Leśna.
And standing there is a structure that has seen, well, basically the entire turbulent arc of the last 100+ years.
It's seen everything. The end of empires, huge literary movements, 2 world wars.
Total abandonment, and then somehow a resurrection.
It's a remarkable case study. We usually look at history through, dates and battles. But looking at it through the lens of a single address.
7 Jarosław Iwaskiewicz Street.
It just gives you a completely different texture of the past. I love that. A specific address grounds it all. So today we're doing a deep dive into Villa Aida. We've got a stack of historical records, architectural notes, cultural biographies, all to figure out how this one house went from an industrialist summer home
to a hub for famous poets,
then fell into complete ruin, and somehow came back to life as a center for art.
And the mission here really is to get at the soul of a building. What's so fascinating about Villa Aida is its cyclical nature. You'll notice, no matter what history throws at it, and it throws a lot, the house always seems to find its way back to art.
It's like the wood itself has a muscle memory for creativity. But before we get to the poetry and the ruin, we have to lay the foundation.
We have to go back to the beginning.
Right. It was built circa 1900. So right at that transition from the 19th to the 20th century.
A time of immense optimism in that part of the world.
And it was built by a man named Stanisław Wilhelm Lilpop. Now that name, Lilpop, it carries some serious weight in that region's history.
It does. The Lilpops were huge players in the industrial development of Warsaw. So when Stanisław Wilhelm Lilpop builds this villa, he's not just, putting up a shack in the woods.
He's making a statement.
A big one. About leisure, about nature, a certain kind of lifestyle.
But the material choice is what really struck me. Wood. In a region that was about to become a corridor for 2 of the most destructive wars in history. Building in wood feels almost, naive.
Or at least incredibly vulnerable. And it is vulnerable. Wood is susceptible to everything. Fire, shelling, rot, damp.
So the fact that it's still standing in Podkowa Leśna is, what, a statistical anomaly?
It really is. Most of its wooden contemporaries are long gone. But you have to remember the context of Podkowa Leśna itself. It was designed as a garden city. The architecture was meant to blend with the forest.
Not dominate it.
Exactly.
So it starts as this idyllic retreat. But the story moves on to the next generation, and this is where the house really gets its character. Ownership passes to Anna Iwaskiewicz.
Who was born Anna Lilpop.
Right. And her husband, Jarosław Iwaskiewicz. Now, I spent some time on him because he's a key figure here. To just call him a writer feels like a huge understatement.
Oh, he's monumental, a titan in Polish literature. And his presence at Villa Aida completely changes the building's function.
How so?
It stops being just a quiet summer home for a rich family, and it turns into a kind of cultural gravity well. When you have a figure like Iwaskiewicz living there, people come to him.
And that pull brings us to the Scamander group. This is the part of the research that I love this part. The villa became a meeting place for these poets. And from what I gathered, Scamander wasn't your grandfather's poetry club.
No, not at all. And this is crucial context. The Scamander poets were the absolute rebels of their time. Before them, Polish poetry was, it was very heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Burdened with patriotic duty, national mourning, all about maintaining the Polish spirit while the country was partitioned. It was very serious, somber stuff.
And Scamander just flipped the table.
They smashed the table they wanted to write about right now. About biology, city streets, crowds, just ordinary life, using everyday language.
So you have this traditional wooden villa in a forest.
But inside, the conversation is radical. It's young, it's loud, and it's completely breaking with tradition.
I love that contrast. And the records say it wasn't just a closed club either. It was a meeting place for the whole artistic community, an open house for ideas.
A true salon, really. But we have to be careful not to just romanticize it as this peaceful utopia.
Because this is all happening against a very unstable backdrop.
Right. World War I enters the chat.
And the source material says the villa was partially destroyed.
It took a direct hit. This is what we were saying about the vulnerability of wood.
It doesn't take much to just wipe it off the map.
And yet the Iwaskiewicz family didn't just pack up and leave, it's a testament to their attachment to the place. Most people, if their country house gets partially blown up, they'd probably stay in the city.
But they stayed. They patched it up.
They kept the lights on.
And that decision is so important. It meant the art, the conversations could continue. But then we move into the 1930s and the story shifts again. The Bohemian Hub era comes to an end.
And we enter what you called the guest house era.
Yeah.
This is a major pivot. The villa changes ownership, and more importantly, its function changes. It's not a private home or a literary salon anymore. It becomes a commercial guest house.
In reading between the lines here, the whole vibe just tanks. The records say guests would stay for a few hours or a few days. Now, a few days sounds like a little vacation. A few hours, that suggests something else.
It suggests transience.
Yeah.
Utility. Nothing more.
It feels like the building lost its dignity. You go from having the greatest literary minds of a generation arguing about poetry in the living room.
Two anonymous travelers checking in for a nap and then just leaving.
It's the difference between dwelling in a space and just occupying it.
That's a great way to put it. In the Scamander era, the house was a participant. It held their memories. In the guest house era, it's just a backdrop, a commodity.
A purely utilitarian space. And honestly, this feels like the first step toward the edge of the cliff. Because what comes next isn't a recovery. It's the crash.
The dark ages of Villa Aida, the post-World War II period.
This part of the story is. It's just sad to read. After World War II, the ownership situation becomes chaotic. The records say it changed hands multiple times.
Which is a very polite way of saying no one wanted the responsibility for it.
Right.
I mean, in post-war Poland, maintaining a big old wooden villa, that was a huge burden. Resources were gone. People were just trying to survive. A poetic summer home from 1900 was not a priority.
And with that instability comes the physical decay. The text says it gradually fell into abandonment.
And you have to imagine what that means for a wooden house in a forest. No heat, no paint, no one fighting back the damp.
It's a death sentence. The wood just wants to return to the earth.
We came so close to losing Villa Aida completely then. It was a ghost of itself, just rotting away.
It's the classic narrative valley. You go from the high of the Scamander poets to the absolute low of this rotting, forgotten shell.
But, and this is where we're talking about it today, the story didn't end there.
The house attracts saviors.
It seems to.
Enter the Cloteau family.
The turning point. They acquire the villa, and they don't just bulldoze it to build something new, which probably would have made more financial sense.
They decide to save it. They start a partial renovation.
And renovation here isn't just fixing a leaky roof. It's an act of cultural rescue.
And there's a specific name mentioned who drives this new era, Wisława Klakaw. Under her, the villa doesn't just get repaired physically. It gets a whole new mission.
It does. It doesn't go back to being a private home.
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't go back to being a guest house. It goes back to its roots.
It becomes the headquarters of the Alternative Foundation.
Yeah.
And I look into what they did there. It was theater workshops and educational activities for kids. But the methodology was what stood out. They used the lens of art and artistic games.
That phrase, artistic games, it's so resonant.
It connects right back to Scamander, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. What were the Scamander poets doing? They were playing games with language. They were experimenting, role-playing. It's a very high-level intellectual game.
And now, decades later, in the exact same rooms where they played their word games,
you have children playing theater games.
Wow.
Now, the level of sophistication is different, of course. A 7-year-old in a drama class isn't Jarosław Iwaskiewicz, but the fundamental human activity, it's identical.
Imagination, performance, using the space to create something new.
Precisely. It feels like the house was waiting for that specific kind of energy to come back. The Cloteau family didn't just fix the timber, they rebooted the soul of the place.
That's a great way to put it. They rebooted the operating system.
They understood that the value of Villa Aida wasn't just in its beams, but in its capacity to house creativity.
And that momentum carries it right into the modern era, because in 2010, it gets official recognition. It's listed as a historical monument.
Which gives it the legal armor it needs. That means it can't just be torn down on a whim. It's recognized as part of the national identity.
And then just a year later, in 2011, it levels up again. It becomes the home of a local history museum.
But not a dusty, silent one.
Not at all. The list of what happens there now is fantastic. Performances, author meetings, concerts, exhibitions, and my personal favorite, poetry evenings.
The poetry came back.
It's full circle.
Hmm.
I mean, can you imagine going to a poetry night there today? You're sitting in the same acoustic space where the Scamander group sat a century ago?
It collapses time. When you're in a space like that, doing the same activity as the ghosts of the past, the distance between, say, 1920 and today feels very, very thin.
It validates the entire struggle. The house survived shelling. It survived the indignity of the guest house era. It survived the rot. All of that, just to get back to this, people sharing ideas in a room.
It shows that culture is resilient, but it isn't self-sustaining. It needs a vessel. Ideas need a place to land, a physical home. And Villa Aida proves a building can be that home.
Even one made of something as fragile as wood.
Especially then.
So if we zoom out, what's the big takeaway? Why should we care about this one house in Poland?
I think it's a reminder to look closer at the buildings around us. We walk past old, dilapidated structures, and we just see ruin. We don't see the layers.
We don't see the salon that used to be in the living room.
Or the history in the floorboards. Villa Aida was written off. It was abandoned. But someone saw the potential to reconnect it to its own story.
And by doing that, they preserved the lineage. If the Cloteau family hadn't stepped in, the physical link to Scamander in that specific spot would just be gone.
We'd have the books. But standing in the room where the book was discussed is a completely different experience.
It makes these titans of literature feel like real people who just needed a place to hang out.
Exactly.
Well, we have tracked the journey from the first plank laid by Stanisław Wilhelm Lilpop to the kids acting out plays there today. It's been a wild ride.
A complete narrative arc.
It really is. But before we wrap up, I have a question that's been sort of nagging me. We talk about the house remembering, but those kids, the ones playing the artistic games there now, they probably don't know the deep history. They might not know who Lilpop was or the full weight of Jarosław Iwaskiewicz. They're just kids.
They are, and that raises a really fascinating question about, well, the metaphysics of a space.
Go on.
Does the space influence them anyway? If a building retains a memory of its past, not in a ghost story way, but in its bones.
It's architecture, it's acoustics.
Right? The way the light hits the floor. Does the legacy of those great poets somehow seep into the art those children are creating right now?
You mean, is the creativity literally in the walls?
Think about it. Are those kids acting with a little more conviction or coming up with a slightly better line of dialogue because the room itself was shaped by and for those very things?
Wow.
Does the history of a place shape the art made inside it, even if the artist has no idea that history is there?
That's a beautiful thought. That maybe the house is teaching them without them even knowing it?
It's certainly something to think about the next time you walk into an old building. You never know who or what is influencing you.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we're going to close the doors on Villa Aida for today. A huge thank you to the historical records and researchers who kept these details alive.
And to the people who are keeping that villa standing, against all the odds.
Indeed. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Keep your eyes open for the history hiding in your own neighborhood.
Until next time.